It happened on a Friday night. We were sitting at a small restaurant, low lights, slow music, the kind of place where couples usually look happy. She was already a few glasses in. I wasn't drinking, I had to drive. She laughed at something the waiter said, then turned to me with this half-drunken smile. And out of nowhere, she said, "You know, I only really liked you after a few drinks." The table went silent. I thought I'd misheard. "What?" I asked. She giggled again, swirling her wine. "No, I mean when we first met. I wasn't sure about you. You were too serious. It took a few drinks for me to, see something in you." She said it like it was a harmless joke, but it wasn't. It was a confession disguised as humor. And in that moment, I realized she didn't mean back then. She meant now. The ride home was suffocating. She was humming along to the radio, tipsy, happy, pretending nothing happened. I was gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. When we got home, she kicked off her heels and collapsed on the couch. "Don't be so serious," she said. "I was just kidding." But her kidding had already cracked something in me. You don't joke about that. You don't tell your husband that you needed alcohol to like him. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, and I started to think about all the little things, how she always drank before date nights, how she never reached for my hand unless she had a glass nearby. It wasn't love. It was tolerance. She woke up hungover, groaning, asking for coffee. I handed her a cup and sat across from her. "Do you remember what you said last night?" I asked. She looked blank for a second, then her face tightened. "Oh, that. You're still on that." "Yes," I said, "because it wasn't funny." She rolled her eyes. "You're too sensitive." That's when I knew she wasn't sorry. She meant it. Over the next few days, I started noticing more. How she always had wine before dinner. How she avoided eye contact when sober. How the warmth in her voice came only when she was buzzed. One night, I asked her directly, "Are you unhappy with me?" She hesitated, then said quietly, "I don't know." That was worse than a yes. Because "I don't know" means maybe I am. A week later, we went to a friend's party. Everyone was drinking, laughing, dancing. She was glowing, loud, confident, beautiful. People loved her energy. Then one of our friends joked, "You're lucky, man, she's so fun when she's drunk." And she laughed, leaned on me, and said, "Yeah, sober me would have never married him." The laughter around us felt like knives. I smiled through it. But when we got home, I told her, "Pack your things." She blinked. "What?" "I'm done," I said. "If you only like me with a drink in your hand, then you don't like me at all." She tried to explain, to backtrack, to turn it into another joke. But I wasn't laughing anymore. She didn't pack. She just sat on the edge of the bed, eyes red, trying to process what I'd said. "You really doing this?" she whispered. I didn't answer. I couldn't. The next morning she was gone. No note, no message, just her half of the closet empty, the faint smell of her perfume still in the room. Silence never felt so heavy. I made coffee, sat down, and realized I wasn't angry anymore. I was tired of pretending, of being enough. Only when she was intoxicated. The call started 2 days later. At first short and calm. "Can we talk?" Then longer, slurred at night. I made a mistake. I didn't mean it that way. I didn't answer most of them. When I did, she cried. Said she missed me. Said I was twisting her words. But I remembered every word. I remembered the tone, the laughter. You can't twist something that was already sharp point one night, close to midnight. She called again. I picked up out of habit. She was crying, clearly drunk. "I said stupid things," she mumbled. "You were always good to me. You made me feel safe. But I don't know how to love sober." That sentence hit harder than any insult, because it was honest. She didn't just drink. because she liked it. She drank because she didn't know how to feel without it. I stayed silent while she cried. Then I hung up. I started going to the gym again, cooking for myself. It felt strange at first, the quiet, the space, the absence. But slowly I began to breathe again. I realized something. She wasn't the villain. She was broken in ways I couldn't fix. And I was guilty too, for trying to save her instead of seeing the truth. Some people don't need partners. They need mirrors. And I was tired of being hers. Weeks later, she sent one last text. It read, "I think I loved you, but only the version of you that made me forget myself." I stared at it for a long time, then deleted it. Love shouldn't require forgetting who you are. It should make you remember. So, I walked outside, cold air in my lungs, and for the first time in years, I felt sober. Without needing to drink, I woke up that morning to silence. Not the comfortable kind, the one that hugs you after a long night, but the type that feels like a heavy fog inside your chest. The kind that tells you something's broken and can't be fixed. She wasn't there. Her side of the bed was empty, but not cold yet. That detail haunted me. It meant she hadn't left long ago. Maybe she'd just been sitting somewhere, trying to think about how to make the next move. Or maybe she didn't care anymore. Last night replayed in fragments. Her voice, her eyes, that drunken laugh that didn't sound like her anymore. "I only liked you after a few drinks," she said. She didn't mean it as a joke. She didn't even say it with cruelty, just a strange kind of detached honesty that made it worse. Like she'd been holding it in for months, and it finally slipped out in a moment when the truth didn't feel dangerous anymore. I sat at the edge of the bed for almost an hour. Didn't cry, didn't curse, just stared at the wall and tried to make sense of what it means when the person you built your whole world around admits they never really saw you sober. The first thing I did was make coffee. Not because I wanted it, but because I didn't know what else to do with my hands. The kitchen looked smaller that morning. Every sound, the spoon against the cup, the kettle boiling, echoed too loud. Her mug was still in the sink from last night. Lipstick stain on the rim. The one I used to tease her about. Funny how something so small can turn into a symbol of everything that went wrong. I thought about texting her, but stopped. What would I even say? Did you mean it? Of course she did. You don't say things like that by accident. By noon, I went for a walk. It was cold outside, early autumn, the kind of day that looks peaceful but feels hollow. I walked without direction, just letting my thoughts spill out in fragments. I realized how much of my life was tied to trying to keep her happy. Every decision, every compromise. I told myself it was love, but maybe it was fear of losing something that was already slipping away. When I came back home, there was a note on the kitchen table. Just one line. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I just don't know who I am anymore." I stared at it for a long time. It didn't feel like an apology. It felt like a surrender. Like she wasn't even trying to fix it, just leaving me to make peace with the ruins. I didn't call her. I didn't chase her. That night, I sat in the dark living room with a glass of water and listened to the clock tick. I thought about how fast time moves when you're happy and how slow it gets when you're broken. Around midnight, I opened Reddit. I didn't plan to post anything. I just scrolled through our /relationships, reading stories of other people who'd been betrayed, humiliated, left. It was strange comfort, seeing that pain wasn't unique, that it had shape and repetition. Someone wrote, "Sometimes people say cruel things not because they want to hurt you, but because they want freedom." That line stuck with me. Maybe that's what it was for her, freedom. Maybe I was the cage, and maybe I was too afraid to admit that I'd been holding someone who stopped wanting to stay. Later that night, I found one of her old playlists on Spotify, the one she used to play while cooking. I listened to it quietly, sitting in the dark. Half the songs were love songs, half were about letting go. I never noticed before. When All I Want by Kotelin came on, I turned it off. The silence felt better. I think that was the first night I realized I wasn't angry. I wasn't even heartbroken anymore. I was just empty, like someone had erased the color from my world, and I didn't know if it would ever come back. I went to bed around 3 a.m., still fully dressed. The window was slightly open, and I could hear the faint noise of cars passing outside. For the first time, I understood that she wasn't coming back. Not really. Maybe physically, maybe to talk, maybe to apologize, but not as her. The version of her I loved didn't exist anymore. And the version of me who needed her, he died somewhere between that sentence and sunrise, that it's strange how a house can stay exactly the same and still feel completely foreign. Her shoes were still by the door. Her jacket still hung on the chair. I couldn't bring myself to touch any of it. It wasn't about holding on, it was about not knowing what came next. Moving things felt like admitting it was over. The first few days blurred together. I worked remotely, kept my camera off during meetings, pretended to take notes while staring at her empty seat across the kitchen table. Every time a delivery truck passed outside, I half expected her to walk in, apologizing for everything, saying she didn't mean it. She never did. By the third day, I noticed something small but unbearable. The smell of her shampoo was fading from the pillow. You don't realize how much scent ties you to memory until it starts disappearing. People talk about heartbreak like it's a clean event, a breakup, an argument, a final goodbye. But the truth is, it dies in layers. First the silence, then the routine, then the hope. I tried to keep my routine alive. Wake up, shower, coffee, emails. But even small things became reminders. The coffee tasted different because she used to add cinnamon when I wasn't looking. The music felt too loud because she used to hum along. The walls felt closer because her energy filled them once. I remember standing in front of the mirror on Thursday morning. My eyes looked older. Not tired, aged. I wasn't even 35, but in that reflection, I looked like someone who'd lived through 10 winters in 1 week. Her family texted me once. Her sister said, "Give her time, she's confused." I didn't reply. I wasn't angry at them. They didn't know the full story, how she'd looked me in the eyes and said she could only like me after a few drinks. That's not confusion. That's clarity wearing a cruel disguise. Friday night, one of our mutual friends invited me out for a drink. "You need to get out of the house," he said. I went, but the bar felt like a museum of everything fake. People laughing too loudly, couples arguing quietly, and me, the ghost sitting between both worlds. I ordered a whiskey, stared at it for 20 minutes, and left without touching it. On Saturday morning, I got an email from her. Subject line, "I don't expect forgiveness." It was short. "I never wanted to hurt you. I don't even know why I said what I said. Maybe I wanted you to hate me, so leaving would be easier. But I can't stop thinking about you. Please don't hate me forever." I read it once, deleted it, not out of anger, out of exhaustion. You can't rebuild something that never had a foundation. That night, I sat on the balcony with a blanket, watching the city lights flicker. For the first time, I started to think about my part in all this. Not guilt, reflection. Maybe I tried too hard to be steady. Maybe she mistook consistency for coldness. Maybe I was the anchor she needed, but she wanted wings instead. But even then I knew, you don't fix loneliness by breaking someone else. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in months. I went for a run. The air was cold, sharp, and almost painful in my lungs. But it was real, and after a week of numbness, pain felt like progress. When I got home, Her wedding ring was still on the bathroom shelf. I picked it up for the first time. The metal was cold. I turned it over in my hand, remembering how she laughed the day we bought it. She said, "It doesn't matter how expensive it is, it's about what it means." Now, I realized it had meant two very different things to us. I placed the ring in a small glass jar, sealed it, and set it on the windowsill. Not as revenge, not as closure, just as truth. Sunday mornings used to mean pancakes, soft music, and her messy hair escaping from a bun. This one was just silence. I woke up before sunrise, not because I wanted to. My body just didn't see the point in sleeping anymore. The apartment was colder than usual, though the thermostat hadn't changed. Maybe warmth had always been her doing. I made coffee black this time. The cinnamon stayed in the cabinet, untouched. It wasn't rebellion, just honesty. I didn't want to mimic something that didn't exist anymore. Outside, the street was quiet. A couple walked by, holding hands, laughing about something small. I used to think love looked like that, simple, shared, ordinary. But maybe simplicity is only possible when both people live in the same story. I sat at the kitchen table and opened my laptop. Her email was still in the trash. I hovered over it for a moment, then clicked empty bin. That small click felt heavier than I expected, like closing a door that will never open again. I thought about writing her back. Not to start something, just to say, "I understand now." But I didn't. Understanding doesn't need an audience. Later, I cleaned, not because I wanted the place spotless, but because I needed motion, any kind of motion. Every object had a story, and touching them felt like flipping through a photo album I didn't consent to open. By the time the sun set, the apartment looked cleaner, emptier, almost peaceful. Maybe that's what healing starts like. Not joy, just less noise. That night, before bed, I wrote one sentence in my journal. I don't miss her. I miss the version of myself who still believed we'd make it. Then I turned off the light. Time didn't heal. It didn't even soften. It just stretched, long, slow, and strangely weightless. 2 weeks since she left, and the days had started losing names. Monday felt like Thursday, Thursday like nothing at all. But somewhere between the repetition, something subtle shifted. I stopped checking my phone for messages I knew wouldn't come. I went running again, longer this time. Not to chase peace, just to remember I still had lungs, legs, a pulse. Halfway through the park, I passed a couple arguing by a bench. Her voice cracked, his hands trembled. I didn't stay to listen, but the sound reminded me that love isn't fragile because people break it. It's fragile because people touch it too hard. At home, I cooked dinner. For one, I even set the table, a single plate, a single fork, a candle I found in a drawer. It wasn't romantic. It was respect. For solitude, for the lesson, for what was left of me. After dinner, I sat on the balcony again. Same blanket, same skyline. But the silence felt different, not hollow, just wide, like a pause before the next chapter, not the end of one. I thought about her ring on the windowsill. It caught the last bit of light, flickering faintly. I didn't move it. Some truths deserve to stay visible, reminders, not regrets. That night, before sleeping, I wrote again. Maybe love isn't supposed to last. Maybe it's supposed to teach. Then I closed the journal, turned off the lamp, and for the first time since she left, slept through the night. That IT had been 47 days since she left. By then, the pain had stopped feeling sharp. It was more like background static, always there, faint but no longer demanding attention. I didn't count the days out loud, but my body remembered. Every Sunday morning still carried that echo of pancakes and laughter that never came. That morning, I woke to sunlight spilling across the floor. The window had been shut since the night she walked out. Maybe that was symbolic, or maybe I was just lazy. Either way, the air inside felt stale, the kind of air that remembers too much. I stood there for a while, staring at the glass. Dust had gathered on the sill, faint outlines where her plants used to sit. For a moment, I thought about how easily things disappear when you stop tending to them. Not just plants, people too. Then, almost without thinking, I opened the window. The air that rushed in wasn't gentle. It was cold, messy, alive. It smelled like wet pavement and autumn leaves, and for some reason that smell hurt, the same way a scar hurts when it's almost healed. But it was honest air, real, not trapped inside memories. Somewhere below, someone was playing a guitar. Just a few chords, clumsy but sincere. And it hit me. I'd been living like someone who was waiting for a second chance that wasn't coming. But maybe that wasn't tragic. Maybe it was the first sign of release. I made coffee. No cinnamon, no pretending. Just bitter and clean. I drank it slowly by the open window, feeling the breeze move through the room, touching everything she once touched, but this time it didn't sting. It just passed through. Her ring was still on the sill, inside that glass jar. The light caught it again, like always, but today it looked smaller. Less like a monument, more like an object. I picked it up one last time. It didn't feel heavy anymore. I didn't throw it away. I just placed it inside a drawer, quietly. Closure doesn't need ceremony. Sometimes it's just the absence of weight. In the afternoon, I went for a run. Longer than before. The city looked different. Not because it had changed, but because I finally started seeing it instead of looking through it. A woman passed me on the trail and smiled. Nothing more. Just a human gesture between strangers. But it lingered the way sunlight lingers after rain. When I got home, I showered, cooked, and sat by the open window again. For the first time, I didn't think about her. Not in pain, not in nostalgia, just not at all. And that absence felt like peace. That night, before bed, I wrote my last note in the journal. She didn't ruin me. She revealed the parts of me I'd never looked at, the quiet ones, the patient ones, the ones that still believe in something gentle. Then I closed the notebook, left the window open, and let the cold night air in. The city lights flickered, the wind moved through the curtains, and somewhere far below, the same guitar kept playing. I didn't whisper her name this time. I just listened. And for the first time since she left, I didn't feel alone.